Since I built the stand for the other dust collector, I haven't been using my Shop Vac, and it's just been sitting taking up space. I thought, well, if I build a platform right about here, I could pile stuff on top of it. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to go ahead and build a platform, why not get another dust deputy and use this to collect dust off the router or off the drill press or off of something else. I found out I could just mount a piece of wood on top of the existing casters and pull it up about that far and build my platform on that. And I wouldn't have to purchase any casters, and it would be a one size compact little outfit. Let's see if I can do it. I'll vacuum this filter, see how it works after the dust deputy is installed. I glued these boards together, 15 degrees on each one. When I got to the last one, you can see it's just off by a little bit. I'll use some sandpaper to make sure that fits together. Okay, let's draw a line around here so we can cut it with a jigsaw. I glued some pieces of wood to the plastic. I was afraid the plastic would crack. I cut these pieces here that fit on there. Now if I cut a little notch right up here, I can take a little metal strap and screw it there, and I go underneath this plastic hole. And furthermore, if I take a hacksaw and cut a little notch in here, it'll just fit right in here with this rib and hold it from moving laterally. And one or two screws down here, and that should do it as far as getting four of these things up there. I'm attaching the last of these legs. Turns out I didn't have to remove any wood, because these things are, these little metal straps bend pretty easy. Now I take this thing. Well, first I have to find the rib. Put it on there. And then I set this thing on. I'm installing the last of the 4 legs. 2 screws on the metal clip and 1 screw down at the base of the leg. After it's all finished, the legs were really wobbly, so I needed to do something to add support. I took this out and marked the 4 quadrants so I can take this outer one and screw it to the top. I'm screwing this outside piece of this circular section that I glued together to the top of these legs because they're really wobbly. I didn't intend to use this outside base for this purpose, but I sure needed it. One screw in each of the legs was enough to make them feel very sturdy. This came out pretty well. Instead of purchasing 45-degree or 90-degree angles, I cut each of these at 15 degrees and then just used PVC cement to cement them together. I cut this one too short, so I had to add a piece here. When the sawdust and everything swirls around in here and down here in this plastic thing, it builds up static electricity. They say that it's built with anti-static plastic, but they send this anyway to put it on. And the first one I built, I did get a static charge while I was using it. I buy these spools of bare copper wire. I think this is 18 gauge. I wrap it around the dust deputy to keep the static down. I've got the foil and the copper ground wire under the same bolt. I need to add another wire under there so that I can go down to the floor. I'm using these little connectors. Well, that one came apart. But they work well in case I need to take this apart and this has to go on the floor somewhere. They have a place where you can solder. I'll go ahead and solder it since I have a soldering iron handy. You can either crimp it or solder it. I'll solder it. The forecast is for rain soon, so I keep looking outside. Check that it's not raining. It looks like I cut it just a tad too short, but that's all right. I'll just splice a piece onto it. This dust collector is finished. Yesterday I had to add this little piece of wood because the weight of this hose was causing the dust deputy to tip and causing the top of the bucket to cave in over here. So I added this thing, and then the weight of this hose dragged the whole dust deputy over. And remember the white piece of PVC tubing I had in here? Because the dust deputy moved, I needed to shorten it, so I cut that out and re-glued it. And it's pretty strong. I added 2 braces down here to keep the bucket from moving any further, especially when it's empty and pretty lightweight. This hose, whether I'm pulling that way or pulling that way, was just moving it all over. And this little tape came with the dust deputy. I put that on there to help with static, and I added this ground wire, copper ground wire, all the way down to some weight down at the bottom. Drags around on the floor. Let's see it work in action. I added this control. You plug your tool in here and it automatically turns it on. And if you don't have a tool, you turn it on here. Over to automatic is where the tool will turn it on, and it works. These are my 2 dust collectors based on the dust deputy. This one I just made with this, this is actually one 2x4 that I first cut into 2x2s, and then I cut the 2x2s in half to make these, I guess it's 1 1/4 by 5/8 inch thick boards. And it's not very much bigger than the Shop Vac itself. Fits in the footprint of the Shop Vac. And this one I made earlier with 2x2 construction with some 2x4s. It's a lot more sturdy and a lot more solid, a lot more heavy, a lot heavier. So there they are.